Hey guys, tonight we're leaving behind the comfort of dry land and stepping onto a ship that stinks of rot, sweat, and fear. The pirate's life. You've seen it in movies and cartoons. Feathered hats, gleaming treasure, grins flashing under the Jolly Roger, freedom on the waves. Yeah, not even close. The truth? It was hunger that never went away. Skin chewed raw by lice, drinking rum because the water was poison, and living every day, knowing disease or a storm could drag you under before a blade ever did. There was no romance here, only misery stitched into every hammock, every biscuit, every wave. This is the brutal reality of medieval piracy, and by the time we're through tonight, you'll never hear the word pirate without tasting salt, blood, and rot. So before you get too cozy, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this strange little corner of quiet storytelling. And drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's strangely comforting to know who else is drifting off with us around the world. Now get comfortable, let the day melt away, and we'll drift back together into the quiet corners of the past. You wake to a violent sway, as though the world itself is trying to tip you out of existence. Your stomach lurches, your skull rattles against damp wood, and your body is already aching from the place you slept. If you were lucky, you snagged a spot in a sagging hammock knotted with tarred rope. If not, you woke on the open planks, bruised from the roll of the sea, and soaked in a thin film of salt water that seeps into everything. The first thing you notice is the smell, and it assaults you like a fist. It is sour beer and vomit, smoke from last night's lanterns, piss sloshed into buckets but never emptied properly, sweat baked into wool, fish guts baked into boots, and beneath it all, the musk of the bilge, that rank stew collecting at the ship's lowest belly. No candle could sweeten this air. No prayer could. Your ears adjust next. Above, boots thud across the deck, rough voices bark curses in a dozen languages, and ropes groan against masts as the ship leans into the wind. A seagull shrieks somewhere in the gray sky, mocking you with the freedom you don't have. Closer by, someone coughs into the crook of their arm, a wet, rattling sound that never quite ends. Another man groans in his sleep, dreaming through fever. The rats make their own chatter too, clawing and squeaking from the barrels where they live like kings, fattened on crumbs and corpses alike. If you roll over, you might find yourself face to face with one of your new companions. His skin is scored with scars, his beard is thick with lice, and his breath smells of fermented rot. He does not wake gently, but with a curse and a shove, because space is precious and patience rarer still. There is no privacy here, no solitude. You are one more body in a press of bodies, another piece of human cargo, and already you are in the way. The ship itself feels alive, though not in any comforting sense. The timbers creak and complain with every shift of the sea, nails grind against their sockets, and the whole vessel moans like a wounded beast. Every gust of wind shoves you sideways, every wave slaps you with its power. It is a constant reminder that you are not the master here. The ocean is, and the ocean cares nothing for your survival. Your clothes are already damp. Wool that never quite dries clings to your skin, chafing your thighs raw and raising angry sores. Salt stiffens every seam, hardens every edge, until your shirt feels like sandpaper against your back. You itch constantly, from lice, from fleas, from the sweat trapped beneath your rags. You dream of clean cloth the way a starving man dreams of bread. But clean is not a word that exists here, and as you struggle upright, dizzy from the rocking and already gagging from the air, you hear the laughter, not the laughter of merriment, but the rough cackle of men who have learned that cruelty is its own entertainment. You are the new one, the soft one. They can smell it on you, beneath the salt and sickness. They look at you the way gulls look at a fish half dead on the waves, You are not a comrade yet. You are bait, burden, or perhaps amusement. It is here, in this first morning moment, that you realize this voyage is not an adventure. It is a sentence. There will be no clean water for days, no fresh fruit for weeks, and no safe harbor for months, if ever. The sea does not offer comfort. The ship does not offer safety, and the men around you will not offer mercy. Forget the parades of gold coins spilling through fingers. Forget the neat rows of polished pistols or the jaunty tilt of a feathered hat. Those are inventions for audiences who will never smell this ship. Here, on the real decks of medieval piracy, there is only hunger, sickness, and the knowledge that the waves will outlast you. And as the gull circles overhead, crying into the vast gray horizon, you wonder if this will be the sound you hear on your final day. Welcome aboard. You wake to a sway that makes no sense to your body. It is not the gentle rocking of a cradle, but the relentless shove of a beast that wants you off its back. The hammock you cling to swings wildly, tossing your stomach in every direction at once, and you are certain you've been asleep only minutes, though the pale light creeping through the cracks insists it is morning. The air is thick with dampness, so every breath feels as though you are drinking a cup of mold. Your skin itches where lice have made their home, a crawling irritation that never ceases, and before you even sit upright, you are already tired of this life. The first sound you truly notice is your own groan, low and pitiful, followed quickly by laughter. Someone nearby finds amusement in your misery, because seasickness is the great equalizer and the surest way to mark you as untested. Your stomach heaves, and you lurch forward, desperate for something to hold. The ship tilts again, and you slam your shoulder into the wood, pain blooming across bone already bruised from yesterday's fall. You spit bile into a bucket that may or may not have been meant for vomit, and the stench rising out of it suggests it has served a dozen other purposes too foul to name. If you were unlucky, and you usually are, you weren't given a hammock at all. You spent the night on the deck itself, curled like a dog on wet planks that never dry, your body rolling side to side with every wave. Splinters dug into your cheek. The boards were sticky with spilled beer and fish blood, and you woke with your clothes soaked in brine from leaks dripping steadily from above. There is no soft surface here, no reprieve for aching muscles. Every inch of this ship bruises you. The lice never stop. They bite at your scalp, crawl in your seams, and drive you half mad with itching. Scratching only breaks skin, which invites salt to burn its way into the wound. Fleas live in your bedding. Rats scuttle across your chest while you sleep, and when you swat at them, they only dart into some other corner, waiting for you to close your eyes again. You are not the master of this vessel. You are its prey. Around you, men stir. Some wake with curses, some roll from their hammocks with the ease of long practice, and some simply cough. The kind of deep, hacking cough that rattles their entire body. One man spits blood onto the floorboards. Another belches up last night's rum and wipes his mouth on a sleeve stiff with sweat. The morning is not greeted with cheer or song, but with groans, swears, and the slap of bare feet dragging across filthy wood. Your stomach turns again as the ship lurches, and you cling desperately to a rope dangling from above. The sea outside is endless, gray and heaving, and though you know it holds fish and freedom, from here it looks like a grave. The horizon offers no comfort. It is only the reminder that there is nowhere else to run. The captain will not care that you are sick. The quartermaster will not let you rest. The crew will laugh and shove you toward whatever task needs a body, because that is all you are, one more body. Whether you stand upright or stagger about in misery, you will haul ropes, scrub decks, and climb rigging with the others. Vomit into the wind if you must, but don't expect sympathy. Seasickness is weakness, and weakness is punished by mockery at best, a beating at worst. The hammock swings, the planks groan, and your head spins. Already your body feels foreign, too heavy, too unsteady. betraying you with every movement. You thought yourself hardy on land, thought your stomach strong, thought you could endure discomfort. Here, all those thoughts dissolve into retching and dizziness. The sea teaches quickly, and its lesson is cruel. You wipe your mouth with the back of your hand, salt and bile mingling on your tongue, and realize this is only the beginning. One night, one morning, and already you are broken. The ship stretches before you, a world of labor, violence, hunger, and disease. You are not ready. You will never be ready. And still, the sea keeps rocking. Relentless, merciless, eternal. The morning begins not with sunlight or songbirds, but with the stench of your own mouth. You wake and taste it immediately, a foul film coating your teeth, sour as vinegar and thick as spoiled milk. There is no toothbrush to save you, no clean water to rinse with, no sprig of mint or dash of salt to scrape away the filth. Your gums ache, your tongue feels swollen, and when you run it along your teeth, you find jagged edges of decay. Some are loose already, threatening to break free with the next hard bite. Others throb with a pain that never quite recedes, like a drumbeat inside your skull. It is not breath you exhale so much as a weapon, a cloud of rot that sickens even you. But you are not alone in this misery. Around you, men stir from their hammocks and planks, coughing into their sleeves, hacking phlegm onto the boards, spitting thick clots into corners already slick with last night's waste. The air fills with the combined exhalations of dozens of mouths that haven't known a brush in years. Rum breath seeps from one corner, fish rot from another, the reek of infected gums rising like steam in the dampness. A man near you yawns wide, and you see the black gaps where his teeth once were, his gums swollen and bleeding, his smile a grotesque ruin. He laughs at some crude joke, spraying spit that smells like a grave. The ship itself seems to breathe with them, a living lung inhaling rancid air and exhaling it back into your face. There is no escape, no fresh corner, no clean breeze. Even when you climb above deck, hoping for salvation in the wind, the stench clings to you. It sits in your clothes, in your hair, in the back of your throat. Every conversation is an assault. Every laugh a fresh reminder that you are trapped among mouths rotting from the inside out. Some men swish rum around in the morning, claiming it cleans better than water, but it only adds another layer of stink to the chorus. The rum itself is rancid, distilled in crude barrels that leak tar and salt into every swallow. It burns down their throats, masking decay for a moment, then leaves behind the sour reek of fermented grain and bile. When they speak after drinking, the air is heavy with it, sharp enough to sting your nose, strong enough to make you gag. And gag you do, often and loudly, until your own vomit adds to the symphony. Seasickness makes the mornings worse. Men lean over the rails, retching into the gray water, their bodies convulsing with every wave. The wind does not carry the smell away. It blows it back across the deck, sour and acidic, coating your senses until you cannot tell whether you are smelling the sea or the stomachs of dying men. You hold your breath as long as you can, but eventually your lungs demand air, and you inhale the foulness again, choking on it, coughing until your ribs ache. There is no cleansing ritual here, no washing of the face, no cup of fresh water to chase away the night. Water is rationed, precious, and far too valuable to waste on the comfort of rinsing your mouth. If you are allowed a sip, it is warm and stale, carried in barrels that sour quickly under the heat. Sometimes it tastes faintly of wood, sometimes of rot, and sometimes of something worse, a hint of sickness spreading through the casks like an invisible plague. You drink it anyway, because you must, but it does nothing to help. Your mouth remains foul, your thirst unsated, your tongue cracked and dry. Every morning you promise yourself you will grow used to it, that your nose will dull, your stomach harden, your tongue forget the taste. But each dawn proves you wrong. The smell of rot is too strong, the breath of men too poisonous, the vomit too constant. It is not something you can adjust to. It is something that wears you down, hour by hour, until you feel half mad with nausea and longing. You think of the simplest things, luxuries you once dismissed as nothing. A cup of cool water, a sprig of mint crushed between your teeth, the bristles of a brush scratching against your gums. You think of standing in the open air, breathing without fear, speaking without recoiling from your own stench. These thoughts haunt you more than hunger, more than thirst, because here, on this ship, even your own breath betrays you. And when the man beside you coughs so hard that blood sprays from his lips onto the deck, you know what the future holds. Soon his mouth will be as empty as his stomach, and his body will follow. The sea will claim him, as it will claim you, leaving behind only the memory of foul air and the taste of decay. The bell rings and you are summoned to breakfast, though the word hardly applies here. You drag yourself across the slick boards, stomach still heaving from the night, and what greets you is not food so much as punishment. The men crowd around a barrel, and out come the biscuits, hard as stone, square and stale, baked months ago and shipped across oceans. They call it hardtack, but it might as well be wood. You take a piece, and it is alive. Tiny black weevils crawl out from the cracks, wriggling in the morning light, their bodies burrowing deeper into the biscuit as if they too are desperate to escape this ship. The older men don't blink. They raise their biscuits, bugs and all, and bite down, their teeth cracking against the surface with a sound like snapping bones. You hesitate, but the man beside you grins with a mouth of rot and tells you the weevils are the only fresh meat you'll see this week. You bite and taste dust, mold, and bitterness. The biscuit does not crumble but shatters, splintering into sharp fragments that scrape your gums and lodge in your teeth. You chew until your jaw aches, until your throat feels raw, and still the piece refuses to soften. The weevils burst under your tongue, adding a squirming crunch you cannot forget. Some men dip their rations in beer or rum to soften them, but the liquid only adds sourness, and the biscuit drinks it up like a sponge, leaving behind a mush that sticks in your throat. You gag, but you swallow, because hunger leaves no choice. Then comes the meat, a slab of salted pork, pulled from a barrel brimming with brine that smells like the inside of a tomb. The flesh is gray, slick with slime, and so tough it bends before it tears. Some parts are green with rot, others spotted black, but it is served all the same. The salt stings your lips and burns your throat, so sharp it feels like swallowing fire, yet the taste cannot mask the decay. You bite and chew until your teeth grind against gristle, your mouth filling with a flavor that is part ocean, part graveyard. A man across from you spits out a chunk of tendon and laughs, saying at least it isn't moving this time. You force it down, though every instinct screams to spit it out, and already your stomach rolls with rebellion. The sea has made you weak, but the food will break you. You wonder if this is how men die here, not by blade or bullet, but by eating what no creature should. The crew doesn't care. They tear at the meat with blackened teeth, gnawing like dogs at a carcass. They slam the hardtack against the table to crack it in half, laugh as they pull live beetles from their biscuits and toss them into their mouths as jokes. Their ease makes it worse, because it tells you that this is not a bad day. This is every day. And for drink, there is no water. The barrels meant to hold it have long since turned. The liquid inside is green with algae, thick and slimy, the surface filmed over with scum. A sip would bring sickness, dysentery, death. So instead, the crew drinks beer, when there is any, or rum when there is not. In the morning, before the sun is high, before the work begins, men are already swaying from liquor. They pass the cups with grins, their eyes glassy, their laughter loud. Beer warm and sour, rum sharp and rancid, but safer than the water that waits to poison you. You take your turn because you must, the alcohol scorching your throat, your empty stomach twisting with fire. It burns, it numbs, it dulls the taste of rot for a while, but it leaves you dizzy, off balance, and sicker than before. There is no fullness here, no meal that satisfies, no comfort to be had in food or drink. Each bite is labor, each swallow an act of will, and when you finish, you are not nourished but hollow. Hunger gnaws still, because what you've eaten has filled your belly with stones, not sustenance. You are weaker than when you began, and all around you men laugh, spit, chew, and drink, as though this feast of ruin is worth celebrating. You thought hunger would be the enemy. You thought meals would be a reprieve, a moment of strength in days filled with hardship. But here, at sea, breakfast is only another battle to survive, another reminder that this ship is not a home, but a sentence. And as you lick the salt from your lips, choking back bile, you know one truth with perfect clarity. This is food meant for the damned. The clothes on your back are not garments but shackles, and by the second morning you realize they will never leave you. The shirt you wear is wool, heavy with damp, its fibers swollen from salt water and sweat, and it scratches your skin as though 1,000 nettles have been stitched into the weave. The trousers cling like wet parchment, stiff where the salt has crusted, slimy where mold has begun its bloom. You reach to peel them from your thighs and they resist, as though fused to your flesh. The smell rises each time you move, sour, mildew, the stench of a body rotting alive. The boots are worse. Leather once sturdy is now swollen, warped, the seams splitting from years of brine soaking in. They never dry, not once, and so they cling to your feet like cold, wet coffins. The salt has eaten into the hide until the texture is rough as sandpaper, rubbing your ankles raw with each step, opening wounds that never close. You feel the burn as the sores weep, the sting as salt grinds into tender flesh. The men around you limp the same way, boots rotted and slouching, toes eaten through so that yellow nails jut out like claws. Some go barefoot, their soles blackened, cut open from splinters and tar, but even that is better than the stink of leather left too long in the sea. There are no changes of clothes. What you wear now is what you will wear until it falls from your body in rags. When storms come, the rain soaks you through, and you strip nothing off when it ends. You keep moving in the same sodden layers, the fabric sticking, the dampness burrowing into your bones. The sun offers no rescue. It burns your skin but never dries the cloth, and the salt hardens against you until your shoulders, thighs, and armpits are rubbed raw. Each movement scrapes you open a little more, until your body is marked by welts, blisters, and sores that sting with every drop of sweat. The stench is unbearable. Your shirt reeks of mildew, of oil, of old blood that never washed out, of vomit soaked into the fibers and left to fester. When you lie in your hammock, the smell clings around you like a fog, pressing into your nostrils until you gag. Others stink the same, worse even, their clothes black with mold where seams once held. The air below deck becomes a stew of unwashed bodies, each man carrying a cloud of sourness that merges into one suffocating haze. You long for soap, for clean water, for even the smallest chance to strip bare and scrub yourself clean, but those luxuries belong to another world. Lice make their homes in your seams, burrowing in the folds of your collar and waistband, biting until the itch drives you half mad. You scratch until your skin bleeds, but it brings no relief. At night you feel them crawling, tiny legs tickling across your ribs and thighs, and the knowledge that they are feeding on you gnaws more than hunger itself. Some men shave their heads to ward off the plague, but lice simply move lower, feasting where hair still grows. Fleas leap from one hammock to another, and the rats that scuttle between planks carry more. You are a banquet to 1,000 small mouths, and there is no escape. The worst part is the permanence. You dream of shedding the garments, of stripping them away and standing naked in the sun until the stink burns off your skin, but the ship allows no such fantasy. To discard your clothes is to freeze at night. to be lashed by the wind until your skin cracks. To own a second set is to be envied, beaten, perhaps killed, for no man here is granted such riches. You learn to live with the filth, to let it seep into your pores, to accept that what touches your skin will always be wet, wretched, and foul. And so your body begins to change. The sores fester. The blisters swell. The skin beneath your arms and between your thighs splits open and leaks. A raw and constant agony that makes walking a torment. Your feet are white and wrinkled from the boots that never dry, your toenails blackened and curling. The salt stiffens the edges of your shirt until they cut into your neck like a dull blade. You move slower, bend stiffly, limp when you rise. The clothes are not just clothing. They are part of you now, a second skin that rots as you do. You thought a pirate's life was dangerous because of blades and cannon fire. But here you learn the truth. The battle is not always with men, but with the very things that cling to your body. The wool, the leather, the salt, the vermin, they do not kill you in a moment. They kill you slowly, stitch by stitch, bite by bite, until you forget what it feels like to be clean, what it feels like to be human at all. The first thing you notice when you wake is not the sway of the ship or the creak of the timbers, but the stench pressing down on you like a heavy blanket. It fills your nostrils before your eyes even open, clinging to the back of your throat, seeping into your skin. There is no clean air here, no breeze untouched by rot or filth. Every breath you take tastes of the men in the sea and the things that fester between them. You might imagine the open ocean to be crisp and bracing, but on this ship, the air is trapped, churned, and steeped until it becomes its own kind of poison. Below deck, the smell is thickest, a stew of human bodies crushed together in hammocks, sweating through wool and leather that hasn't been washed in months. The air is humid and damp, a haze that never disperses, and the sour tang of sweat is only the base note. Over it hangs the sharper sting of piss buckets shoved into corners, often tipped and sloshed by the roll of the ship, leaving their contents to soak into planks already swollen with filth. Every footfall stirs the layers: piss, sweat, vomit, and rot. You gag and cover your mouth, but your hand carries its own reek, and there is no way to hide from it. You climb up for a breath of sea wind, hoping for relief, but the deck offers only another bouquet of ruin. Here it is, fish guts, blood smeared across the boards from the last catch hauled aboard and gutted in haste. The brine mixes with tar, pitch, and salt, the stink of the ropes soaked in sweat and mildew, the sails that drip with mold. Add to it the crew themselves, men whose mouths spill rancid rum breath, teeth rotting from within, and whose bodies exude a stink so layered that sweat is only the beginning. When they laugh or shout near you, you feel the sour cloud of their exhalations coating your face, clinging until you can almost taste it. The galley brings another wave. The stink of hardtack crawling with weevils, pork salted past saving, barrels of food gone rank with mold. Even before it reaches your tongue, the smell assaults you, sour and acrid, meat oozing slime in the morning heat. Around it lingers the constant reek of spilled rum, beer turned to vinegar, bread crumbling into powder mixed with sweat and tar. The cook himself reeks of grease and smoke, his apron stiff with layers of old fat, and his laugh carries the sour note of teeth long since surrendered to rot. Then comes the bilge, the lowest part of the ship, where water collects in darkness. It is the ship's underbelly, and its odor seeps upward no matter how tightly the hatch is sealed. The bilge water is stagnant, a foul mix of seawater, rot, rats, and waste. It carries the musk of decay, thick enough that when the hatch is opened, men turn their faces aside, gagging. But still it rises, mingling with piss, sweat, and mold, until the very air itself feels rancid. It clings to your clothes, your hair, the back of your throat. Even when you climb to the deck in search of a clean breath, the ghost of it follows. Your own body betrays you as well. You sweat through the same rags every day, clothes soaked in salt, urine, vomit, and blood. You cannot wash, cannot rinse, cannot change. The filth becomes part of you, seeping into your skin until you can no longer tell where you end and the ship begins. Your armpits burn with sourness, your mouth reeks of rot, your hair stinks of mildew, and still the men laugh when you cover your face, because to them, this is nothing. They call it perfume, a scent that proves you belong. To them, the air is not foul but familiar, a constant companion, as much a part of life as the deck beneath their feet. The worst truth is that after a while, you stop noticing. The stench is no less foul, no less heavy, but your senses dull. What once made you gag now only makes you wince. What once made your stomach churn now barely registers. You swallow it with every breath, until it seeps into you so deeply that you no longer recognize it as foreign. The stink becomes your own, woven into your hair, your skin, your very breath. You could leave this ship tomorrow and step onto clean land, but the air of the sea would follow you, a second skin of rot and brine that you could never wash away. It is not the smell of salt or ocean spray. It is the smell of men rotting slowly, of a ship eating itself alive, of a life lived in filth and decay. It is, as the crew says with bitter laughter, a perfume only pirates could love. The cry of "all hands" is not a suggestion, not a polite request. It is a command that brooks no hesitation, and when it comes bellowing across the deck, you move, whether you can stand upright or not. Sleep, sickness, hunger, all are secondary to the demand that your body be used up in service to the ship. The moment your feet hit the planks, you are just another pair of hands, another back to bend and shoulders to strain until they ache like hot iron under your skin. You thought the sea would mean adventure, but the reality is endless labor, a grind that leaves you trembling with exhaustion before the sun is even overhead. The ropes are the first to greet you. They are rough, thick cords of hemp, hardened by salt and stiff from use, biting into your palms with every tug. Haul here, pull there, drag the line until your muscles scream, and do it again the moment you release. Rope burns stripe your skin, the fibers grinding your flesh raw until it feels as though you are holding fire. Splinters lodge in your fingers, deep enough that you will pick at them with a filthy blade later, digging through skin already swollen with pus. Your hands are never whole, never free of cuts, sores, and bruises. The deck, slick with salt water, blood, and slime, must always be swabbed. You take up the mop, though it is hardly more than a stick with rags tied at the end, and bend until your back is screaming. The sun beats down, sweat stings your eyes, and the stink of rot rises as the water spreads, never truly cleansing, only smearing filth into a thinner layer. Your knees ache as you scrub, your palms blister from the handle, and the wood beneath your hands is rough enough to tear skin each time you fall against it. When you slip, and you will, you crash hard. Bruised ribs, scraped elbows, a tooth loosened by the sudden slam of your jaw against the boards. The others laugh, unless your blood flows freely. Then they only shrug and tell you to get back up. Climbing the rigging is worse. The sails must be trimmed, the ropes adjusted, and there is only one way to do it up, high into the air, where the wind is merciless. You cling to the ropes, body swaying with the mast, every muscle trembling as you climb higher than your courage allows. One slip means death, or worse, a shattered body that must somehow still work. You feel the wood scraping your knees, the rope sawing across your arms, and the spray of the sea blinding your eyes as you reach for the next hold. Below, the deck looks like a coffin lid waiting to catch you. Your breath comes ragged, your stomach churns, and the men above shout at you to hurry. They do not care that your limbs shake like reeds. They only care that the sails catch the wind before the ship founders. Every task is endless, looping back on itself until there is no end in sight. When the ropes are hauled, the sails trimmed, and the deck swabbed, there is still tar to smear into seams, barrels to shift, cargo to lash, weapons to clean. Your hands never rest, your back never straightens, and even the briefest pause earns a snarl or a cuff to the head. The labor does not stop for rain, storm, or night. It does not stop for hunger, thirst, or wounds. It only stops when you are too broken to move, and even then someone will drag you to your feet, shove a rope into your hands, and demand you continue. Bones snap easily here. A foot slips on wet wood, a hand catches wrong on a rope, a mast swings at the wrong moment. You hear the crack of a wrist, the groan of a spine wrenched too far, and the curses that follow. There is no doctor, no mercy, no rest. A splint might be fashioned from scrap, but the work continues. A man with a broken finger still hauls lines. A man with a broken rib still climbs rigging. If you cannot stand, you crawl. If you cannot lift, you drag. Pain is irrelevant. The ship does not slow because your body has given way. By the time the sun sinks low, your arms hang useless at your sides, your legs quiver with each step, and your hands sting from every movement. Still, the orders come, and you obey. You will scrape, haul, climb, and bleed until darkness swallows the sea, and then again when the morning returns. For here, on this ship, survival is not about courage or cunning. It is about enduring the endless grind, swallowing your pain, and forcing your broken body to rise again when every part of you screams to collapse. There is no rest, no reprieve, no escape. Only the ship, and the work it demands. The first roll of the ship hits you before your eyes are even open. A lurch that twists your stomach into knots and sends bile rising hot in your throat. The hammock beneath you sways like some cruel pendulum, and the smell of salt, sweat, and rot mingles with the sour tang of vomit already soaking into the boards nearby. You try to breathe through it, try to steady yourself, but the sea has other plans. The moment you sit up, the world spins, your vision tilts, and you are scrambling for the nearest edge with your mouth open in a desperate gag. It comes in waves, just like the ocean, heaves that empty you until there is nothing left but a bitter trickle of bile, leaving your throat raw and your ribs aching from the effort. The others ignore you, stepping around your mess with the indifference of men long accustomed to this misery. They have their own sick to deal with, their own trembling bellies and spinning heads. Seasickness is not a passing affliction here, it is the sea's tax, paid in sweat and vomit, and it does not release you after a day. It clings, it festers, and it becomes a part of you until you forget what it feels like to stand still without swaying. There is no medicine, no comfort, no kind hand to press a damp cloth to your forehead. You grip the ropes until your knuckles whiten, lean over the side of the ship, and retch until your stomach is a hollow drum. Your throat burns with acid, your eyes stream with tears, and the salt wind lashes your face until it is sticky with spray and spit. You think you might be done, that there can be nothing more inside you to give, and then another swell rolls beneath the hull, and your body betrays you all over again. The hunger gnaws at you, but even when you try to eat, the food turns sour in your gut before you can choke it down. Hardtack, already crawling with weevils, sits like a stone in your belly until it comes back up, rough and sharp, scraping the same tender throat it burned on the way down. Salted meat, greasy and slimy, is worse, and you taste it twice before you learn that eating is not worth the punishment. Even water rebels against you, though it tastes foul and green from the barrel. Every sip is a wager you are destined to lose. Your body grows weak from the constant purging. Knees shake, muscles ache, and the effort of lifting a rope or climbing a ladder becomes impossible when your energy spills from your mouth day after day. You think you might collapse, but collapse is not permitted. Orders are barked, tasks are demanded, and no one pauses because your insides are staging a mutiny. You vomit in the middle of hauling a line, wipe your mouth with the back of your hand, and keep pulling. If you don't, the lash waits, and so does the sea, indifferent to your suffering, rocking you until your guts churn like waves against a cliff. The stench follows you everywhere. It clings to the deck where it pools and stains. It hangs in the air like a curse, and it seeps into your very skin until you smell it even when the wind changes. The men are not quiet about it. They laugh, mock, jeer, though they are doubled over themselves, spilling their own guts into buckets or over the side. Seasickness is not a humiliation here. It is a shared torment, but still, they find humor in your misery. A man who can't keep his food down is a man too weak to fight, too weak to steal, too weak to stand when the sea truly tests him. The nights bring no reprieve. In the dark, when you think you might finally rest, the hammock rocks you awake with every shift of the ship. The bile stirs, the nausea rises, and you spend the black hours heaving into a bucket that spills across the floor with every tilt. Your stomach cramps, your head throbs, and your mouth is left dry, cracked, and tasting of acid until dawn. Sleep is shattered by sickness. Rest is stolen by the endless churning. You live in a cycle of waking, vomiting, laboring, vomiting again, until you are no longer certain where one day ends and another begins. And the worst truth of all is that there is no cure, no tea, no tincture, no gentle hand on your back with promises that the sickness will pass. There is only the sea, merciless and relentless, rocking you to the edge of death without ever granting you release. It becomes a part of you, this sickness, stitched into your bones and your blood until you cannot imagine a day without it. The sea does not want you to forget. The sea wants you to suffer, and so you do. You hear them before you see them, the faint scratching in the dark, the quick skittering of tiny claws across the planks above your head. At first you think it's your imagination, the sound of the ship creaking and groaning as it rides the waves, but then you catch the glint of a beady eye in the lantern light and realize the truth. The rats are everywhere. They move with confidence, not like pests, but like rightful passengers, their tails dragging across the wood, their teeth sinking into whatever stores they can find. Salted pork, hardtack, even the ropes, nothing is safe. You lie in your hammock and listen to them gnawing, knowing full well that when the food runs short, your toes and ears might be next. The crew doesn't try to get rid of them. Rats are simply another kind of shipmate, tolerated like the groaning timbers or the leaky seams. They keep themselves fed well enough on the crumbs and rot, and some men even encourage them, tossing scraps just to keep them from chewing holes in sacks of grain. If one crawls across your chest in the night, you brush it away and roll over. If one makes off with a piece of bread in broad daylight, you watch and curse but do nothing. To fight them is useless. The rats are many. You are one. And the rats are not alone. The real torment comes from smaller companions, harder to see but impossible to ignore. Fleas bite in the night until your skin crawls, leaving your ankles raw and red with tiny sores. They live in the straw of the hammocks, in the folds of your filthy clothes, in the seams of the boots that never dry. They come in waves, just like the nausea of the sea, a constant itch that never dulls. You scratch until your skin breaks, until blood wells beneath your fingernails, but it does not matter. The fleas remain, patient and hungry, waiting for your next moment of weakness to feed again. And then there are the lice. You feel them at your scalp, tiny legs crawling through your hair, clinging to every strand. You feel them at your collar, burrowing into the seams of your shirt, spreading from man to man in an endless chain of misery. Some men try to crack them between their nails, a tiny pop followed by a flick of disgust. But for every one killed, a dozen more wait. You could shave your head, and some do, but even bare skin doesn't save you from the bites. Lice thrive where men huddle together, And on this ship you are pressed as close as cattle in a pen. There is no escape. You become a feast without end, a banquet table for every parasite with teeth and hunger. The rats gnaw on your food, and sometimes on you. The fleas dine on your blood as you sleep. The lice nest in your hair and clothes like a second skin. You are chewed from every angle, devoured in pieces, until the thought of your own body feels borrowed, as though it belongs to the vermin more than to you. Every itch reminds you. Every bite reminds you. You are not alone here, not for a second, not even when you close your eyes and pray for silence. Some of the crew treat it like a joke. They scratch themselves bloody and laugh at the sight of you clawing at your scalp like a madman. One sailor boasts of eating a rat raw when the stores ran dry on another voyage, holding the memory like a badge of honor. Another claims the lice are lucky, a sign that you're still alive, because the day they stop biting is the day you're already a corpse. You want to laugh with them, to make light of the endless torment, but the humor doesn't reach you. It is too close, too constant, too vile, and yet, over time, you adjust. Not in comfort, never in comfort, but in numbness. The itch becomes background noise, a low hum in the back of your mind, just like the creak of the rigging or the slap of waves against the hull. You scratch without thinking, dig at your flesh until you bleed, and then carry on with the ropes or the swabbing as though nothing happened. When a rat scurries across your foot, you barely flinch. When fleas leap from your bunk to your shirt, you shrug them off and get back to work. Disgust turns to endurance. But in the dark of night, when the lanterns are out and the ship rocks like a cradle, you feel them all the same. The tiny bites, the crawling legs, the whiskers brushing your arm. You lie awake, a prisoner in your own skin, knowing that tomorrow you will rise weak, sore, and chewed raw, ready to do it all over again. Because here, among pirates, vermin aren't pests. They're crewmates, and you're just one more body keeping them alive. The first thing you learn about life at sea is that the ocean mocks you. You are surrounded by endless rolling waves, blue and glittering in the sunlight, pounding against the hull with a rhythm that seems eternal. It looks so clean, so inviting, that your cracked lips ache just to taste it. But you know better. A single mouthful of seawater will betray you. Its salt will scour your throat raw, shrivel your insides, and send you spiraling into delirium faster than thirst alone ever could. You are trapped in a cruel paradox. Water everywhere, but not a drop fit for your body. So you turn to the barrels stored below deck, where the pirates keep what little fresh supply they hauled aboard when last in port. At first, when the voyage is still young, the water is passable, stale, perhaps, but tolerable. But the days at sea stretch long, and the barrels are never truly sealed. Wooden staves swell and warp with the damp. Sunlight sneaks in. Mold blooms across the surface like green lace, and the liquid beneath takes on a sickly sweetness, as if the wood itself is rotting from within. Before long, every swallow carries not refreshment, but a gag, the rank taste clinging to your tongue like slime. The men know it too. They watch the water darken, smell its stench when the barrel is opened, and they recoil. So they drink what feels safer: beer, ale, and rum. The alcohol may burn the throat, but at least it kills what festers. Morning, noon, and night, mugs are filled not with clear liquid, but with the same sour brew, the same fiery measure. Rum doesn't quench thirst, it masks it. A pint of ale might stave off disease, but it cannot truly hydrate you. Still, it is safer than the green water, and so you drink, even as your body begins to dry from the inside out. Dehydration creeps on you like a shadow you can't escape. Your lips crack and bleed. Your tongue swells against your teeth, rough as leather. Every word feels like it must be wrestled from a desert throat. Sweat stings your eyes, but you dare not waste it by wiping it away, for even that moisture feels like something you've lost forever. You start to dream of fountains and rivers, of rainwater streaming down gutters, of cool cups raised to your lips in a life that feels centuries ago. And yet, even in those dreams, you taste only rum. The danger doesn't end there. Fresh fruits and vegetables spoil long before the voyage does, and so they are absent from your diet almost entirely. What you are left with, hardtack, salted meat, and barrels of stale drink, cannot provide what your body needs. Weeks pass, and sores bloom at the corners of your mouth. Your gums puff and bleed, tender as bruises, until even biting into a crust of bread feels like punishment. Old scars split open. Bruises linger for weeks without healing. Teeth loosen one by one, and some fall out entirely, leaving gaps in a mouth already ravaged by filth. This is scurvy, the sailor's plague. It does not strike suddenly, but gnaws at you slowly, like a rat at the ship's stores, until you are hollowed out from within. Some men lie in their hammocks, swollen and bleeding, unable to rise when the captain calls for hands. Others stagger about the deck, their faces pale, their bodies weakened, their spirits dulled. You try to ignore it, to believe your body stronger, but when your gums ache and your joints flare with pain, you know the truth. You are no different. The sea claims all in its time. Every once in a while, salvation falls from the sky. A storm breaks, and rain lashes the deck in torrents. Pirates rush with buckets, bowls, even their bare hands cupped together, desperate to catch the precious drops before they vanish into the sea. You join them, tilting your face upward, mouth open, letting the rain flood your parched throat. For a moment you taste purity, sharp and clean, washing away the rot and rum. But it never lasts long enough. The storm passes, the sky clears, and the ocean mocks you again with its endless brine. You tell yourself you could endure this for weeks, perhaps even months. You imagine the port ahead, the promise of barrels fresh from a spring, of fruit piled high at market stalls, of wine that doesn't taste like rot. But deep down you know there is no guarantee. Pirate voyages are not mapped by comfort. They stretch on until luck runs out or prey is found, and if that takes months, you will waste away with the rest. And so you drink what you can, rum when offered, rancid water when desperate, rain when blessed. None of it is enough. The ocean spreads around you, vast and merciless, and you are more than thirsty. You are dying of thirst, one sip at a time. You don't notice it at first. Nobody does. At the beginning, the signs are small, so slight that they blend into the ordinary misery of life at sea. Your gums feel a little tender when you gnaw on hardtack, and you assume it's the mold or the grit ground into the biscuit. Your joints ache after climbing rigging all day, but that's expected when you're bruised and battered by the rolling deck. It could be anything, but it isn't. It's the beginning of something worse, something you can't stop, something that will gnaw you hollow from the inside out. Scurvy arrives not as a storm, but as a long gray dawn that never ends. Weeks without anything green, months without fruit, and your body begins to betray you. Your gums swell until they puff up over your teeth like purple sponges, leaking blood whenever you chew. The taste of iron becomes permanent in your mouth, thick and sour, drowning out whatever flavor your ration carried. Then the teeth themselves loosen, wobbling in your jaw, as though your bones are too weak to hold them. One day, as you bite into a string of salted meat, a tooth snaps free and tumbles into your hand. You stare at it, stunned, as the men around you laugh because they've seen it all before. They know you're just joining their ranks. Your skin bruises at the lightest touch. A rope brushing against your arm blooms into a purple welt that lingers for weeks. Old scars split open as if the skin itself has forgotten how to knit together. Wounds refuse to close. A scratch that would heal in days back on land festers now, turning red and angry. The edges raw, the smell sour. Infection is never far, and with it comes fever, delirium, death. Men who once swaggered across the deck now sit slumped in the corners, their bodies collapsing in on themselves, their energy drained, their laughter gone. And there is no cure. Not here. Not on this floating coffin with its rotten barrels and its endless salt. The sailors know it. They've seen men crumble by the dozens. They know the only salvation comes from something as simple as fruit, a lemon, an orange, even a single sprig of parsley. But out here, there is none. The sea stretches for weeks in every direction, and the closest orchard might as well be on the moon. So you sit and rot while the ocean rolls on, indifferent, eternal. It doesn't kill you quickly. That's the cruelty of scurvy. It makes a spectacle of your decline. Your gums rot until every word tastes of blood. Your legs swell with edema, heavy and useless, until walking across the deck feels like dragging chains. Your breath turns foul, a stench that clings no matter how often you rinse your mouth with rum. Your bones ache, your muscles weaken, your vision clouds. You are young, perhaps, but scurvy makes you old before your time. You see yourself in the wasted faces around you, men who can barely climb a ladder, who tremble holding a spoon, who cough up blood between sips of beer. When a man dies of it, he doesn't go with a scream. He fades. He lies in his hammock, too weak to rise, his body covered in sores, his teeth gone, his gums black. The others hardly look at him. They've seen it too many times. His death is just another tally, another body tossed to the sea, another reminder that none of you are immune. You try not to think about it as you chew your hardtack, but your jaw aches, and you taste copper. You know what's coming. Some nights you dream of oranges. Not whole meals, not feasts, but the sting of citrus on your tongue, sharp and bright, cutting through the salt and blood. You imagine peeling it, the juice spraying, the pulp bursting between your teeth. It is heaven. It is torture. You wake with your mouth watering, only to reach for the same ration of stale biscuit, the same cup of cloudy water, the same slow death waiting in your gut. Scurvy doesn't just take your body, it takes your hope. Each day, you feel yourself weaken, and you realize there is no fighting it, no grit or toughness that will save you. The sea is patient, and it is always hungry. It doesn't need cannon fire or cutlasses to claim you. All it has to do is deny you something as small, as simple as an orange. On land, you might imagine pirates as wild men, free from rules, brawling and boozing without care. But the truth is far colder. Out here on the open sea, there is no law above the crew, no judge but the captain, and no prison to lock you away. Order doesn't come from courts or kings. It comes from fear, written in scars across men's backs, and bones left bleaching on nameless islands. The so-called freedom of piracy is shackled by codes as unforgiving as the ocean itself, and the first lesson you learn is that one mistake can cost you your skin, your place, or your life. When you signed on, whether by choice or by the press of a cutlass at your ribs, you were bound by articles of agreement, the ship's code. It might be read aloud to you as you stood on deck, still shaking from seasickness, or thrust into your hands to sign with a shaky mark. Equal shares of plunder, perhaps, or punishments for theft among the crew, and rules about fighting, gambling, or sneaking extra rations. These aren't suggestions. They are sacred, for they're the only thing standing between survival and mutiny. Break them, and you'll find yourself at the mercy of men who have no use for mercy at all. Discipline is swift and merciless. The most common punishment is the lash. You might think a few stripes across your back is nothing, but here the whip is more than leather. It's a strip of knotted rope soaked in salt, and each crack tears skin into ribbons. You cling to the mast, wrists bound, while the crew looks on, their faces blank. Some watch with grim satisfaction. Others turn away, not because they pity you, but because they've stood in your place before. By the time it's over, your shirt is plastered to your back with blood. and the salt air stings every open cut until you feel as if you've been flayed alive. Infection often follows, and more than one sailor has limped away from a flogging only to die weeks later when his wounds rotted. Then there is marooning. It sounds almost romantic until you understand it for what it is. A pistol with one shot, a jug of water, maybe a crumb of food, and you are rowed ashore on a barren spit of land. The boat pushes back to sea, leaving you to watch the sails shrink on the horizon. You will starve or thirst or shoot yourself before madness does the job. The ocean is merciless, but solitude is worse. A man marooned is already a ghost, long before he dies. And sometimes, the punishment is worse still. Stealing from the plunder can mean death. Mutiny, if it fails, is answered with the hangman's rope strung high from the yardarm. The ship's codes may promise equal say in decisions, but equality ends the moment you cross the line. The captain may be chosen by the men, but once chosen, he wields absolute authority when steel is drawn or sails are spread. Defiance isn't spirited rebellion. It's suicide. The irony is that these rules are what hold the ship together. Without them, chaos would reign, and chaos at sea is death. The pirates may drink themselves blind, gamble away their last coin, or bellow songs until dawn, but the code keeps them bound tighter than chains. You think you can keep your head down, follow orders, and survive, but you'll learn soon enough that accidents happen, tempers flare, and one wrong glance or careless word can put you in the spotlight. When that happens, you'll feel the eyes of every man on deck, weighing whether to speak for you or watch you bleed. The crew's discipline is not a matter of justice. It is survival, forged from years of storms, battles, and betrayals. They will not hesitate to break you if it means preserving the fragile order of their floating world. And so you walk each day with a kind of fearful reverence, measuring your words, counting your steps, watching the captain's mood, for you know there is no second chance. The lash, the island, or the rope waits just over your shoulder, and the code that binds the pirates is carved not in ink, but in blood. The lesson is simple and brutal. Out here, etiquette isn't courtesy, it's obedience. You will bow to the code, or the sea will take you one way or another. When the day's work ends, you imagine there might be rest, a quiet evening under the stars, perhaps a moment of peace as the waves roll gently by. But life aboard a pirate ship offers no such relief. Leisure here is not rest, it is chaos, loud and bloody, and every man plunges into it with the same hunger he brings to a raid. You find quickly that the ship is never quiet, not even at night, and the laughter that fills the air has an edge sharp enough to cut. The first thing you notice is the dice. Small carved bones clattering across a plank, rolling into cracks, scooped up with curses or roars of triumph. The stakes are always more than coin. A man will gamble away his rations, his knife, even his clothes, if the role tempts him. Some wager their very futures, promising to scrub decks for weeks, or hand over their share of the next plunder. You watch as fortunes rise and fall in seconds, and you see the way a man's eyes turn murderous when he loses too much. A smile can turn to a snarl with frightening speed, and soon fists are swinging, teeth breaking, blood dripping onto the same boards where the dice still roll. Rum is everywhere, flowing faster than water. The barrels that sit below deck are tapped at night, and every man drinks as though the next storm will kill him. The stuff burns down your throat, sour and sharp, and it only adds to the chaos. Men sing in slurred voices, bawdy songs that make the night echo with madness. Others collapse in heaps, snoring in the filth, while a few grow louder, meaner, itching for a fight. The air is thick with the smell of alcohol, sweat, and blood, and in the dim lantern light the faces around you are flushed, wild, unrecognizable. Fighting is not a pastime here, it is entertainment. Two men circle each other, egged on by the crew, while the crowd chants and shoves them closer together. Fists crack against flesh, and every blow is greeted with cheers. A knife might flash, a bottle might smash across a skull, and no one interferes until one man is down and groaning. Even then, help does not come quickly. The wounded man will be left to crawl away, his blood mixing with spilled rum on the deck, while the victor drinks to his own strength. The violence is not hidden or shamed. It is celebrated, a reminder that only the strongest, the cruelest, the most reckless survive out here. You try to stay out of it, but that's impossible. Sooner or later, the crew turns its eyes to you, the newcomer, the landlubber who hasn't yet proved himself. A shove here, a mocking word there, until you're cornered. Dice shoved into your hands or a cup of rum thrust against your lips. Refusal is not an option. You drink until your stomach turns, gamble until your hands shake, and fight whether you want to or not. The deck tilts under your feet, the crowd roars in your ears, and you realize that every evening is a test you are bound to fail. Even when the brawls die down and the dice are swept away, the air does not soften. The men laugh, but it is not the laughter of friends. It is harsh, jagged, filled with cruelty. They toast victories that never happened, joke about deaths that did, and when the laughter fades into snores, the silence is heavy with menace. You lie awake, bruised and aching, listening to the creak of the ship and the moans of the wounded, knowing that the cycle will begin again tomorrow night. There is no such thing as peace on a pirate ship. Leisure is just another kind of battle, a war fought with fists, knives, dice, and drink. And no matter how hard you try to avoid it, you will be dragged into the fray, cheered or jeered, until you understand the truth. Here, survival isn't about the raids or the storms. It's about living through the nights, when the only thing more dangerous than the sea is the men who sail it. When the work is done and the rum is flowing, when the deck is still slick with blood from brawls and the air still heavy with sweat and smoke, something strange happens among the crew. A voice rises in song. It is rough, cracked from salt and shouting, but steady enough to pull others in. Soon more voices join, one by one, until the ship itself seems to hum with a low, rumbling chorus. You didn't expect music here, in this world of filth and violence, but music is what keeps these men from going mad. The songs are not sweet. They are shanties, crude and sharp, built to keep rhythm with the ropes and oars, to hammer time into the endless hours of labor. The lyrics are full of curses, of women left behind, of ships burned and captains hung. And yet when the men sing together, the sound is almost beautiful. It binds them in a way nothing else does. A shared heartbeat echoing across the creaking timbers. You hear the stomp of boots, the slap of hands against knees, the rise and fall of voices layered with laughter and growls. The melodies are simple, but they carry weight, a thread of humanity sewn into the fabric of brutality. By lantern light, the songs melt into stories. Men lean close, their faces half lit by the flicker of flame, their words curling into the night air. A scarred sailor tells of a storm so fierce it swallowed 3 ships whole, while another swears he once saw the devil himself walking across the waves. The tales stretch truth until it snaps, but no one cares. Lies and legends are the same here, and both taste sweeter than reality. You listen as men describe treasures buried beneath sand, battles fought with steel and fire, and betrayals that ended in blood. Each story is punctuated by the crack of laughter or the clink of cups, and for a moment, the misery of life at sea is pushed to the edges of the circle, held back by the glow of the lantern and the warmth of shared imagination. You begin to see how these moments matter. Without them, the endless work and endless hunger would crush every man on board. The shanties give rhythm to the days, and the stories give meaning to the nights, weaving fantasy through the stench and suffering. They remind the crew that they are more than beasts hauling ropes and eating weevils. They are part of something larger, something that can laugh at death and sing in the face of despair. Even you, shivering in your damp rags, feel yourself pulled into the current, humming along before you realize you've joined them. But the joy is brittle. Beneath the laughter there is always a shadow, the reminder that tomorrow brings more toil, more sickness, more blood. The songs can only rise so high before they crack into coughing. The stories always circle back to lost men dead, ships sunk, dreams abandoned. The lantern burns low, and the faces around it look older, hollower, emptied out by the sea. You notice the way a man's hand trembles as he strums a stolen lute, the way another hides a cough in his sleeve, the way all of them drink harder once the silence falls. And yet, for those brief hours, it doesn't matter. The deck might reek of piss and rot, the hammocks might crawl with lice, the waves might promise death at any moment. But the crew still sings. They still clap, still howl, still tell stories so wild they almost sound true. Against the vast, endless misery of pirate life, these scraps of joy are defiance, small torches burning in the darkness. They are fragile, fleeting, and doomed to fade, but they shine all the same. It is in those moments, watching the lanterns flicker and listening to the ragged voices, that you realize something important. Misery is inescapable here, but music and stories are proof that even in the belly of hell, men will find a way to remind themselves they are still human. The moment you step onto the deck, your old name means nothing. Whatever you carried in the world before the family who raised you, the town that once knew you, the life you imagine might have mattered, has been swallowed by the sea. Here you are, not John or William or whatever syllables once shaped your identity. Here you are, simply boy, dog, whelp, or, more often, nobody. The hierarchy of a pirate ship does not leave space for your dignity. At the top stands the captain, whose word can decide whether a man eats or starves, lives or dies. His eyes scan the horizon like a hawk's, always hunting, always measuring the wind and the crew with equal suspicion. He is not your friend. He is not your protector. He is the man who will throw you overboard if it means keeping order or saving the ship. Beneath him, just as powerful in his own way, is the quartermaster. He is the one who deals with the men directly, who distributes rations and decides punishment. You might not even catch the captain's gaze in your first months, but the quartermaster will know your face well, because he will be the one to strike it when you falter. Below them are the seasoned crewmen, hardened wolves who've survived storms, battles, disease, and starvation. They earned their place by proving they could bleed and keep standing. They carry scars like medals, missing fingers like trophies, and each one of them is a reminder of how little you matter. When they bark orders, you jump. When they shove you aside, you stay shoved. When they laugh at your expense, you smile through gritted teeth. Because every man on this ship is a predator, and you are the easiest prey. You quickly learn that there are no introductions, no welcomes, no gestures of kindness to ease you into this world. The first time you stumble while hauling a rope, a hand smacks you hard across the head, and the laughter that follows tells you what role you will play. The first time you hesitate on the rigging, another man stamps on your fingers, forcing you to climb or fall. The message is clear. You are ballast, meat, a replaceable body to throw at the sea's endless hunger. The truth settles over you like a weight. You could die tomorrow, swept overboard, cut down in a raid, wasted by fever, and not one man would shed a tear. The only words spoken about you would be curses at the extra work your death caused. If you are buried at all, it will be in the belly of the ocean, your corpse rolled from the deck without ceremony, food for sharks before your name has even faded from memory. And yet, this is not cruelty for cruelty's sake. It is survival. A pirate ship is a floating kingdom of desperation, and order must be carved into it with fear. Respect here is not granted by birth or wealth or charm. Respect is earned by proving, again and again, that you can endure pain, that you can do the work without complaint, that you will bleed alongside the others and not falter. Until then, you remain at the bottom, a body to scrub the decks, to haul the sails, to swab the filth that seeps into every corner of this rotting vessel. At night, when you collapse onto the damp planks with your muscles screaming and your skin raw, you might whisper your old name to yourself. You might try to cling to it as a reminder that you are still human, still someone, still more than the nothing they tell you that you are. But even your own voice feels foreign, swallowed by the chorus of jeers and commands. The ship itself seems to mock you, its timbers groaning louder than your fragile memory of home. In time, if you survive long enough, you might claw your way into recognition. You might earn a nickname, not out of affection, but out of acknowledgement, proof that you've at least stopped being invisible. But that is a long way off, and for now, you are nobody. And on this ship, nobody is the closest thing to nothing. The storm does not announce itself with gentle warning. One moment the horizon is pale and still, the waves rolling like the breathing of some slumbering beast, and the next, the wind snaps awake with a howl that rips through the rigging. The sky bruises black in minutes, and the first drops of rain strike your face like pebbles. You think of storms on land, the kind where you could duck beneath a roof and wait it out. Here, there is no roof, no solid ground, no refuge. The sea owns you, and it has decided you will suffer. The crew erupts into motion. Orders are screamed over the rising wind, but the words are half swallowed by the roar of waves and the crack of canvas tearing from its seams. You don't even need to understand the commands you run. You pull, you stumble where the others shove you, hands burning on wet rope as it slices your palms. Salt water blinds you, your hair plastered to your face, and every breath tastes of iron and brine. The deck lurches beneath your feet like a drunk giant, sending men sprawling, bodies colliding, curses hurled into the storm as if fury might hold back the water. The waves rise higher than houses, crashing against the hull with the force of hammers. Each impact rattles your bones, and for an instant, you're sure the timbers will split apart. You glimpse the mast, towering above, shuddering in the gale like a spear waiting to snap. Lightning tears across the sky, so bright it carves every detail into your vision. The twisted rigging, the terrified faces, the foaming sea below, before plunging it all back into darkness. Thunder follows like cannon fire, shaking the air itself. In those flashes, you see men clinging like insects to ropes, their silhouettes etched in silver light, and you realize one slip means death. And men do slip. A cry cuts through the storm as one sailor loses his grip, sliding across the slick deck before the sea swallows him whole. The water closes as quickly as it opened, erasing him from existence. And though the crew glances for a heartbeat, no one can stop to mourn. Another body is thrown against the rail, his leg twisted at a sickening angle, his screams nearly drowned by the storm's voice. Blood washes away as soon as it spills, carried into the ocean like an offering. You keep hauling, keep climbing, your fingers raw and your muscles trembling, because you know that if you stop moving, you will vanish like the others. The rain needles into your skin, the wind claws at your clothes, and every instinct in you begs to lie flat and cling until it passes. But lying flat means being trampled, or worse, being thrown overboard when the deck heaves again. So you move, half blind, half deaf, pulled along by the sheer terror that freezes your lungs with every wave. Hours pass, though time is meaningless in the chaos. The storm has stripped the world down to noise and darkness, salt and fear. You are reduced to something primal, no longer thinking in words, only in the raw pulse of survival. When the mast shudders under a strike of lightning, so close the air smells of fire, you believe for a moment that you are already dead, that this is what drowning feels like: endless water above, endless water below, no chance to breathe. And then, as suddenly as it began, the fury ebbs. The thunder rolls away, the rain thins into a drizzle, and the sea, though still restless, loses its murderous height. The ship lists, battered but unbroken, and the men collapse where they stand, their chests heaving, their faces pale with exhaustion. Someone coughs out a laugh, sharp and desperate, the sound of men who survived by chance alone. You taste blood in your mouth from biting your own tongue. Your arms shake too hard to hold a rope. Around you, the deck is littered with broken wood, shredded sails, and patches of empty space where men once stood. The ocean has claimed its due. You are alive, yes, but you understand now that storms are not weather. They are judgment. And the sea will pass that judgment again, whenever it pleases. The sea doesn't need a storm to kill you. Sometimes it waits until the sky is gentle, the sun bright, and the breeze steady, and then it reveals its hidden teeth. You can't see the jagged reefs from the deck, but you hear the sudden grinding scream beneath your feet, the unmistakable sound of timber splitting against stone. The ship shudders as though struck by cannon fire, and men stumble, grabbing for ropes that won't save them. The ocean has lured you in with calm waters, only to drag you down in silence. The impact tears through the hull like claws, ripping open the belly of the vessel. Cold water gushes in faster than buckets can carry out, and within minutes the lower deck is a death trap, barrels and crates smashing loose, pinning anyone foolish enough to linger. The crew scrambles in blind panic, shouting orders that contradict each other, while the quartermaster bellows over the chaos, demanding the sails be cut free. But no one is listening. When a ship has been gutted by rock, every man knows the truth. There is no saving it. The only question left is whether you die fast or slow. Some leap into the sea at once, hoping to outswim the pull of the sinking wreck. But the water is merciless. The waves churn with broken wood, barrels, splintered beams, and bodies colliding hard enough to break bones. You watch one man vanish beneath a falling spar, his scream cut short by the crack of bone and the hiss of bubbles. Another claws at a barrel, clinging to it as though it were salvation, but the current rips him away before your eyes. If you stay aboard, the odds aren't better. The ship lists violently, dragging itself down with each breath of seawater that pours through the torn hull. You're thrown to the deck as it tips, scrambling on hands and knees like an insect on a sinking log. Splinters stab your palms, and the air itself feels heavy, thick with smoke from a lantern that shattered in the chaos. Somewhere below, trapped men pound against the hatches, their fists a hollow rhythm of doom as the sea rises to claim them. You make a choice, or rather, the sea makes it for you. A wave smashes across the deck, tearing you from your footing, and suddenly you are in the water, flailing, the cold biting so deep it steals the air from your lungs. Salt fills your mouth, burning your throat, and the roar of the ocean is louder than any scream. You kick, thrash, gasp for breath, but every direction looks the same. Water and wreckage, bodies and debris, horizon and sky. And then there is the worst possibility of all, survival. You cling to a broken plank or an empty cask, your arms shaking, your lips turning blue. The ship disappears behind you, swallowed whole, leaving only fragments to mark where it once floated. You drift with the wreckage, tossed like flotsam, watching the sun climb higher, waiting for rescue that never comes. Hours bleed into days. Your tongue swells with thirst, your skin blisters with salt and sun, and every shadow in the waves feels like a shark circling closer. Men beside you go silent one by one, their hands loosening their grip until they slide away, claimed by the sea with hardly a ripple. It is a lottery, this kind of death. Some are crushed instantly by falling masts. Some drown in the first minutes, lungs flooding before panic even fades. Others, the unlucky ones, live long enough to starve, to dehydrate, to pray that another ship might appear on the horizon. The sea does not care which fate is yours. It only cares that you understand your place. You are fragile, breakable, and temporary. And as you drift, lips cracked, skin raw, the truth gnaws at you with every wave. The ocean doesn't need storms or cannon fire to end you. It just needs you to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And sooner or later, every pirate's luck runs out. The first sign of them is never subtle. A black speck on the horizon, a sliver of sail where the sky meets the water, and every man aboard knows it is no merchant. Merchants run when they see you. Pirates come closer. The cry goes up, harsh and urgent, and suddenly the ship is a frenzy of hands, hauling ropes, loading cannons, and sharpening blades already stained with rust and blood. The air tightens with a fear no one admits aloud, because every man here has been on the other side of it. Rival pirates don't bargain, don't spare, don't waste time with parley. They come to take, and they come to kill. The wind fills the sails of the enemy ship as it grows larger, sharper, hungrier. You can see the scarred wood of her hull now, patched in places where cannonballs tore her before, her flags whipping in the air like a dare. The men aboard her stand lined at the rails, muskets ready, faces carved with grins or grimaces. They look like you, filthy, scarred, gaunt, but there is no kinship. They are wolves from another pack, and if they reach your deck, you will be nothing more than meat. The cannons fire first, a roar that rattles the air and splits your ears, followed by the thunder of iron shots smashing into wood. Splinters burst like shrapnel, cutting through skin and muscle with the cruelty of knives. Men scream, some clutching stumps where hands had been, others sprawled broken beneath shattered beams. The smell of sulfur and blood mixes with the ever-present salt, a stench that turns your stomach even as your body lurches forward to haul ropes or run powder to the gunners. You load, you fire, you duck, but the truth is unavoidable. They are faster, closer, closing the distance with every exchange. Grappling hooks bite into the rails with metallic clangs, ropes stretching taut as the ships lock together. You feel the jolt when hull meets hull, wood grinding against wood, and suddenly the battle is no longer at a distance. It is here, in the crush of bodies, in the spray of blood. They come swarming across, pistols firing, cutlasses swinging, boots slamming onto your deck with the fury of an invading tide. The world narrows into a blur of faces twisted in rage, arms hacking, blades flashing in the dim light. You barely raise your weapon in time to block a strike, the impact numbing your arm, the edge sliding dangerously close to your throat. The man who swung it smells of rot and sweat, his eyes wild, his teeth blackened. He snarls something you cannot hear over the chaos, and then he lunges again. Around you, men fall. Some die quickly, throats opened or skulls caved in by iron. Others are dragged down in snarling heaps, stabbed again and again as rivals take out their hunger for dominance in steel. The deck runs slick with blood, boots slipping as bodies pile in tangled heaps. There is no mercy here. If you drop your blade, if you falter even for a breath, you are meat for the slaughter. The captain shouts, his voice carrying through the carnage, urging men to hold, to fight, to push them back. But the tide does not listen to captains, and the tide is not in your favor. You see one of your mates pinned to the mast, a knife driven through his hand, his scream rising before a pistol shot ends it. You see another pushed overboard, his arms flailing as he vanishes into the frothing sea. You fight because there is no other choice. Your arms burning, your chest heaving, every breath a struggle against smoke and terror. And then, as sudden as it began, it is over. Either your crew stands, battered but victorious, or you lie among the fallen while strangers pick through the wreckage. Victory, if it comes, is not triumph but exhaustion. Your hands trembling, your body streaked with blood, some yours, some not. Defeat is worse. The survivors chained, beaten, stripped of what little they have before being tossed into the waves or pressed into service under new masters. This is piracy's truest face. Not the romance of treasure maps and buried gold, but the raw, brutal certainty that one day another ship will appear on the horizon, and only one of you will live to see the next dawn. They don't warn you. There is no slow build-up, no chance to steady your nerves. One moment, the enemy ship is looming beside you, sails snapping like whips, guns still belching smoke. The next, iron claws bite into the rail grappling hooks, heavy and sure, catching fast. Ropes whip across, thudding against the deck, and before you can breathe, they are pulling themselves hand over hand, howling like demons in the salt-thick air. The ships grind together with a shuddering moan of wood on wood, and suddenly the sea itself feels too small to contain the violence about to spill. They come in waves, boots thudding, cutlasses gleaming in the sickly light. Pistols crack in your ears, the smoke choking as much as the fear, and men drop where they stand, eyes still wide with disbelief as their blood fans out across the planks. There is no order, no strategy, no distance. Boarding is slaughter in close quarters, steel against flesh, bodies colliding so tightly you can feel the heat of another man's breath before you smell the rot in it. You raise your blade, but your hands shake, slick with sweat, and the first impact nearly knocks it from your grasp. The deck becomes a battlefield so confined you cannot tell friend from foe until the blade is already swinging. A man lunges at you, his teeth bared, and you parry just in time, sparks spitting from the steel. His cutlass arcs again, grazing your sleeve, slicing through cloth and nearly flesh. You shove him back, but another is already behind him, musket raised, firing point blank into the chest of your shipmate. The sound is deafening, the body jerks, and warm spray hits your face before you realize it is blood. You don't even have time to wipe it away before another blade comes down. Feet slip in the mess. Blood makes the deck treacherous, every step a gamble, every stumble a death sentence. A man beside you falls to his knees, clutching at a gash that has spilled his insides out, and the next moment he is trampled under boots, screaming until the crush silences him. Arms and legs are hacked apart with such ferocity that you no longer see them as men but as meat. The planks littered with severed hands still twitching, fingers grasping for weapons they'll never hold again. The air reeks of powder, sweat, and the copper sting of fresh death. And there is no retreat. The rails are choked with ropes, bodies, and blades, the sea below a graveyard already swallowing the ones too slow to hold their footing. To leap is to drown. To stay is to fight. You are trapped in a cage of shrieking chaos, forced to swing, stab, bite if you must, because hesitation will cut you down quicker than any sword. You feel blows glance off your ribs, hear the clash of steel against your own, and still, you cannot tell if you are winning or merely delaying the moment you collapse into the tide of corpses. Every sense is overwhelmed. The roar of men, the crash of wood, the sharp crack of pistols, the choking cloud of smoke that blinds as much as it suffocates. You lose track of time, of space, of self. You fight not to live, but because your arms will not stop moving, your lungs will not stop dragging air. Survival is instinct, not choice. You are no longer a man, only an animal flailing in the dark. When it ends, you do not realize it at first. The screams ebb, the steel quiets, and you are left standing amid ruin, chest heaving, blade red to the hilt. Around you, the deck is a butcher's block, bodies strewn, limbs scattered, faces frozen in terror. The victors stand ragged, wounded, barely human themselves, too exhausted to cheer, too blood-soaked to feel triumph. That is a boarding action, not a duel of honor, not a story sung in taverns. Just the raw, unfiltered collapse of order, where men become beasts in the press of smoke and steel, and the only law is the blade in your hand. And even if you live, part of you will never leave that deck. They drag the captives below decks, down into the foul dark where no breeze reaches. Chains clink against the wood, iron shackles biting into wrists already raw from struggle. The air is damp and close, thick with the stink of bilge and bodies, and the groans echo like some kind of dirge. You can hear the rats before you see them, skittering through the shadows, bold enough to dart across a prisoner's legs, pausing only to sniff at wounds left untended. Down there, time doesn't move forward. It rots. Hours stretch into eternities, marked only by the rasp of breath and the occasional whip of seawater slapping against the hull. Some of the prisoners cry out, begging for mercy in languages you half understand, but their voices fade quickly. They know mercy isn't part of this voyage. Captives are currency, bargaining chips, flesh to be sold in some distant port if they live long enough. The unlucky ones won't. Some will be beaten for amusement, others left chained in the dark until thirst and despair do the work. The crew doesn't look at them as men anymore, just spoils, like barrels of grain or crates of cloth. Above decks, the mood is altogether different. The plunder is hauled out under the sun, piled high like an altar to greed. Bolts of silk, crates of spice, barrels of wine, chests brimming with coins and trinkets. It gleams so brightly you almost forget the blood it took to gather it. The men crowd around as the quartermaster begins the division, his chalked slate in hand, the so-called code dictating who earns what share. Supposedly, it's fair. A cut for the captain, a cut for the officers, and a slice for every man who risked his skin in the fight. Supposedly, pirates live by rules as strict as any navy, bound by honor among thieves. But you see how it truly works. The captain's chest is always fuller than the rest, his extra, justified by command, by wisdom, by the illusion that leadership is worth more than blood. The quartermaster takes his due with sly hands, setting aside trinkets before they're even counted, his word rarely questioned because he keeps the peace. And when the shares are finally handed out, you watch as some men grin with coin in their palms while others clutch crumbs. Arguments flare, knives are drawn, and the air hums with the knowledge that fairness is just a word, not a reality. For you, the new recruit, the lowest rung, the share is pitiful. A handful of silver, maybe a scrap of cloth if you're lucky, while others swagger with purses heavy enough to clink when they walk. You know better than to complain. You've seen what happens to men who question the code too loudly. Their voices are cut off mid-sentence, drowned out by fists or blades, or the quiet decision to maroon them at the next barren island. The law of pirates is absolute, but it bends in favor of the strong. Meanwhile, the prisoners rot below, their existence forgotten as soon as the loot is divided. Occasionally one is dragged up to be questioned, beaten, or simply mocked for sport. A woman might be claimed by a crewman, a child traded, a man pressed into service under threat of death. They're no longer people in the eyes of pirates. They're opportunities, and opportunities are meant to be squeezed until they're dry. Night falls, and the plunder is stowed, locked tight in chests or barrels, though everyone knows the locks mean little. Theft among pirates is punished harshly, but temptation is always stronger than fear. Men slip coins into their pockets, stash gems in boots, even risk swallowing small trinkets to retrieve later. Greed makes fools of them all, yet it drives every hand to fight again and again, knowing another haul might line their purse just enough to make the misery worthwhile. You lie awake in your hammock, listening to the laughter above and the chains rattling below. The world of pirates is balanced on that divide, the spoils that shine in the sun and the suffering hidden in the dark. And you realize the truth with a sinking weight in your chest. Out here, you are either the plunderer or the plundered. There is no middle ground, no safety, only survival, for as long as fortune allows. The first thing you notice when someone is wounded at sea is not the blood, but the silence that follows. A scream might split the air when a musket ball tears into flesh, or when a slip on wet rigging sends a man crashing to the deck. But what comes after is worse. The crew gathers, eyes darting, as if waiting for someone to step forward with knowledge, with skill, with hope. But there are no doctors here. The closest thing is a cook who once gutted fish in a portside tavern and now carries a rusty blade he calls his surgical tool. If you're unlucky enough to be the one sprawled on the planks, bleeding and broken, you'll soon discover what medical care aboard a pirate ship truly means. Your wound will be rinsed with seawater because that's all there is. Salt burns into the torn flesh, and the sting makes your vision swim, but it's the best disinfectant anyone can imagine. After that, it's cloth pressed tight. Whatever rag can be spared, usually already filthy with sweat and grime. There are no clean linens, no soothing ointments, only pressure and prayer. Bones don't break politely aboard a ship. They splinter jagged, poking through skin or twisting at unnatural angles. There's no gentle setting of the limb, no delicate cast. Instead, the quartermaster or boatswain grips your arm or leg and yanks it into place with brute force, the sound of cracking cartilage snapping louder than your cries. Splints are fashioned from spare wood, lashed together with rope, the same rope that still carries the stink of tar and mildew. Infection doesn't wait politely. It seeps in with every breath, carried on the unwashed hands of your shipmates, fed by the rot that lingers in the damp planks beneath you. When it comes to bullets or blades lodged inside, the cruelty sharpens. Someone with steady hands, usually steady because of rum, not training, will dig around in your flesh with a knife, searching for the foreign metal. There is no anesthetic, no mercy. You scream until your throat is raw, until you lose your voice, until you nearly faint. And if the shard is found, they call it a victory, even though your body will likely fester afterward. If it isn't found, you are simply patched up and left to rot from within, the infection spreading like fire in dry grass. The worst comes when an amputation is required, a leg shattered by falling, rigging, an arm mangled by cannon fire. These are not injuries you live with at sea. They are weights dragging you toward death. The answer is the saw. A carpenter's saw, dulled from years of cutting wood, now repurposed for flesh. You are given rum, as much as you can swallow before your stomach revolts. You are held down by half a dozen men, their faces grim, but their grip unrelenting. Then the blade bites. It screeches through bone and sinew while your screams twist into animal sounds. There is no pause, no reprieve, only the relentless grinding until the limb falls away. The stump is cauterized with hot pitch, the same tar used to seal the ship's seams. The smell of burning flesh mingles with the smoke, choking you as the pain sends you spiraling into darkness. If you survive the shock, the real battle begins. Fever rises, the wound swells, and the flies arrive even here, far from shore. Gangrene blooms in shades of green and black, spreading until the only cure is another cut higher up the limb. Most don't last long enough to endure that. Death isn't dignified on a pirate ship. It comes slow and messy, wrapped in pus and sweat and moans. Your crewmates may spare a glance, perhaps a muttered word, but soon enough they return to their dice games or their rum. Life is cheap here, and the sea swallows the dead without complaint. Your body, if you're lucky, will be sewn into a hammock and tipped overboard with a stone at your feet. If you're unlucky, you'll simply be left where you fell until someone grows tired of stepping over you. And as the salt water closes over you, the ship sails on, chasing the next prize, the next plunder, the next fleeting taste of fortune. Out here, wounds are not healed, they are endured until they kill you, and they almost always do. It starts with one man groaning in the night. At first, you think he's seasick again, another poor soul curled up in the dark, clutching his belly as the ship sways. But but the sounds don't stop. By morning, his hammock is fouled, the stench unbearable, and his face is pale with sweat that clings to his brow like dew. He can barely stand, his legs wobbling beneath him, as if the bones themselves have softened. The others jeer, until they realize they feel it too, that sudden cramp in the gut, the heat rising in the skull, the shiver even in the choking summer air. And so it spreads. The ship is small, the space tighter than a coffin, and disease moves through it faster than the wind fills the sails. Dysentery comes first, cruel and humiliating. Buckets fill with watery filth until no one can carry them to the rail without retching. The deck itself becomes slick with it, and the smell rises like a living thing, choking every breath you take. Your clothes cling damp to your body, your skin rubbed raw from salt and sweat, and now waste, too, stains everything. The food you choke down in the morning races through you before noon. Your body shrivels, dehydrated, eyes sinking deeper with each passing day. You're not dying gloriously in battle. You're melting into nothing, one foul drop at a time. Then comes the fever, the rash that blooms across skin in angry blotches, the lice carrying their tiny black gifts from body to body. Typhus does not knock politely. It storms in, burning hot through the blood, rattling bones with chills. The strong stumble as if drunk, collapsing against masts or onto the deck with wide, glassy eyes. The weak simply stop moving. Men once proud who laughed in the face of cannon fire now whimper like children, shivering beneath thin, soaked rags. There is no escape. Every hammock is occupied by someone coughing, moaning, or lying terrifyingly still. The ship feels more like a floating coffin than a vessel of plunder. The surgeon, if there is one, is useless. No herbs, no powders, no prayers make any difference. Rum is poured down throats until lips crack, but it only worsens the dehydration. Buckets meant for fresh water are fouled, and the barrels of ale vanish quickly under the guise of medicine. Within days, the able-bodied are outnumbered by the sick, and the sails flap helplessly as no one remains to trim them. Death, when it comes, is not quiet. Some fight until the very end, raving in fever, clawing at the boards as if they might tear free from the world itself. Others waste away so thin they look less like men and more like skeletons dressed in rags, eyes staring out from deep caverns until the light finally goes out. Their shipmates can do nothing but drag the bodies to the rail, stitch them roughly into whatever canvas or cloth is at hand, and heave them into the waves. The ocean fills with more pirates than fish, and yet the plague continues to feast. It doesn't matter if you wash, though few bother. The lice travel in seams of clothing, in the very fibers of the hammocks. They crawl across the floorboards at night, invisible but ever present. Even the captain cannot hide from them. No rank, no wealth, no cruelty saves you from the tiny teeth tearing at your skin, the poisoned blood that follows. The code of the ship, so strict when it comes to treasure, falls apart in the face of sickness. Some demand the sick be cast overboard at once, lest the entire crew perish. Others clutch to brotherhood, insisting that no man be abandoned. But as days bleed into weeks and the death count grows, mercy runs dry. Soon the ship is silent save for the groans of the living and the slap of waves against the hull. The laughter, the shanties, the drunken boasting gone, dice lie forgotten. Cards scatter across the floorboards, damp and curling at the edges. Even the rats retreat to the shadows, their sharp eyes gleaming as they wait for more still bodies to gnaw. You are not on a pirate ship anymore. You are trapped in a drifting plague ship, a blackened husk limping across the ocean, death riding every current of air. And if you survive, it is not because you were strong or clever, but because the disease chose to skip you. Fate rolls its dice, and most of the time, it rolls against you. You may think you fear storms, disease, or hunger, but But the true terror of piracy is what waits if you are caught. Every moment you spend at sea carries the invisible weight of the gallows, that ever-present reminder that society has marked you an outlaw, a traitor to crown and country. On land, in ports, in every city where trade thrives, the punishment for your life is already carved into wood and iron. No jury of your peers, no soft prison cell, no chance of redemption, just the noose, or worse, the cage. You are not a soldier, you are vermin, and kings demand vermin be crushed publicly, slowly, as a warning. The stories circulate on board as much as songs and dice games. Some old salt will mutter of a comrade strung up on execution dock, body twisting as the tide lapped higher, strangled not once but thrice as the rope was cut and reset. Others whisper of the iron cage's gibbets, where corpses swung for years, faces picked apart by gulls, bones rattling in the wind, until nothing remained but rust and memory. Every port you raid, every merchantman you rob, carries you closer to that fate. It isn't a question of if, it is only a question of when. Imagine the capture itself. Cannons thunder, your sails shredded, your captain struck down in a spray of red. You and what remains of your crew are herded at cutlass point into the hold of a Navy ship, wrists bound, the jeers of sailors echoing above you. Shackles chafe your ankles, and the stench of your own fear mixes with the damp wood. There is no rum, no songs, no bravado left. Only silence, broken by the occasional sob of a man who once boasted he feared nothing. But every pirate fears this. The trial is a mockery. You are paraded into a court already decided against you, your crimes rattled off like tally marks. Theft, murder, treason against the king's peace. Witnesses swear they saw you at sea, and though you might protest, you know it doesn't matter. You are guilty because you lived as a pirate. Your fate is sealed the moment the black flag was hoisted. The judge pronounces sentence not with rage but with cold inevitability, as though he were describing the setting of the sun. You will be hanged by the neck until dead, and may God have mercy on your soul. The walk to the scaffold is long by design. Crowds line the streets, jeering, hurling rotten food, eager to watch you swing. Children ride on their fathers' shoulders, pointing and laughing. Vendors sell pies and ale as though it were a festival. And in a way, it is an execution, is entertainment, a moral tale brought to life. Your neck, their lesson. Guards drag you forward when your legs falter. The rope waits, heavy and coarse, dangling from the beam like a serpent ready to strike. You can hear it creak in the wind, whispering of what's to come. And then, in one violent moment, the world drops away. Your breath is stolen, your vision explodes with sparks, and your body jerks in grotesque spasms as the crowd cheers. If you are unlucky, the knot slips, and you do not die swiftly, but hang there gasping, tongue swelling, eyes bulging, until darkness finally claims you. And even then, you are not free, for your corpse, once cut down, may be claimed for the gibbet. They lock you into a cage of iron, arms and legs forced into unnatural angles, and hang you from a post near the shore. There you remain, a grim scarecrow against the horizon, your flesh rotting in the sun, your bones clattering in storms. Birds strip you piece by piece, and children throw stones at what's left. Passing sailors spit, or make the sign of the cross, or laugh nervously. You are no longer a man. You are a warning. And back on the ships, the pirates still free glance over their shoulders, imagining your cage swaying in the wind, smelling the rot that never leaves. They drink harder, sing louder, fight more viciously, but the shadow of the gallows is always there, stretched long across the deck, reaching into every hammock and every corner of the hold. No matter how much gold you plunder or how far you sail, death waits with patient certainty, a rope and a beam ready to claim you. That is the truth of piracy. Not glory, not freedom. but the endless knowledge that your story will likely end in a jeering crowd and a creaking rope. The sea does not shout at you every day. It does not always roar with storms, or clash with cannon fire, or drip with the fevered sweat of battle. More often, it whispers nothing at all. Days stretch into weeks, weeks into months, and still the horizon remains the same endless line of blue. It is the silence that wears you down, the ceaseless absence of change. You thought you feared death, but it is monotony that unravels the mind. Morning begins, as it always does, with the groan of timbers and the dull crash of waves against the hull. The chores are the same. Scrub the deck, coil the ropes, patch the sails. You do them not because you want to, but because you must. Because idle hands on a pirate ship quickly become broken ones. The sun rises, crawls across the sky, then sinks into the water, and the only difference from yesterday is the pattern of salt crust on your skin. Time ceases to be a thing you measure by clocks or calendars. Out here, it is just a smear of sameness. At first, you try to fight the boredom. You count the gulls wheeling overhead, trace patterns in the wood grain of the deck, or whisper to yourself just to hear another voice. But the gulls vanish as you drift farther from land, and the ship's wood grows no more interesting with inspection. The voices of the crew become predictable, too snarled orders, coarse jokes, muttered curses. Even their brawls lose their edge when they happen in the same way, again and again. You are surrounded by noise, yet it all blurs into silence, a silence of the soul. It is in this silence that your thoughts turn strange. You begin to dream with your eyes open, staring at the sea until its surface seems to ripple into faces, into hands reaching up from below. You hear music in the creak of the mast, whispers in the slap of water against the hull. The men beside you sometimes laugh for no reason, or weep in the middle of a meal, or wake screaming from dreams of drowning. Loneliness is not the absence of people. It is the crushing knowledge that you could be surrounded by dozens and still be entirely alone. The sea becomes a prison, and its walls are made of horizon. No escape, no release, only water in every direction. Some men cope by drinking until they stumble and sing. Others carve marks into wood, tracing tally after tally, until the planks look like gravestones. A few simply stop speaking altogether, their eyes hollow, their mouths slack, as though some part of them has already leapt overboard and drifted away. When the silence takes you, it does not do so with fanfare. It just grows inside, slow and steady, until you are no longer sure whether you are awake or dreaming. And then, every so often, something breaks it. A sudden squall that rattles the rigging, a whale surfacing in the distance, or the cry of "sail ahead." These moments hit like lightning, burning through the fog of your mind, and for a brief instant you feel alive again. But the storm passes, the whale dives, the ship disappears over the horizon, and the silence returns heavier than before. That is the cruel trick of the sea. It gives you just enough to remind you of life before drowning you again in stillness. You may think yourself strong, able to endure hunger, thirst, even the lash of discipline. But the silence gnaws in ways no whip can. It eats at your memory, so that faces blur and names slip from your tongue. It erodes your sense of time, so that you do not know whether you've been at sea for 3 months or 3 years. It hollows you out until the only thing you can cling to is the faint, desperate hope of landfall, a patch of earth, any earth, to remind you that the world is still solid beneath your feet. But the ocean does not care for your hope. It stretches on, endless, indifferent, silent, and if you are unlucky, you will find that you are not broken by storm or cannon or blade, but by the weight of nothing at all. Trust is a currency more fragile than gold at sea, and it devalues faster than rotten meat in the hold. From the moment you stepped onto the deck, you were warned, though not in words, that every man here has a knife hidden somewhere, not just for enemies, but for each other. The code, the brotherhood, the songs sung at night, they all feel like a bond until the first whisper of treasure drifts through the ranks. Then you see how quickly grins turn into grimaces and how laughter curdles into suspicion. The ocean may toss the ship with its endless swells, but it is betrayal in every wave that truly keeps you off balance. You try to tell yourself that there is safety in numbers, that the crew needs each other to survive storms and battle. But survival is not the same as loyalty. The men who haul ropes beside you during the day might slit your throat in the dark. And you know this not because it's a possibility, but because you've already seen it happen. A missing ration here, a sudden knife fight there, and the story is always the same. He stole from me, he cheated me, he crossed me. And no one asks too many questions, because they are already calculating how to claim whatever scraps are left behind. The paranoia builds in quiet ways. Men whisper in corners, huddle in groups, when they think the officers aren't watching. A pair of dice clatter, but the stakes are never just coins. They're favors, promises, debts that can never be repaid. You notice the captain's eyes darting more than usual, scanning faces as if he's trying to measure how long before his own crew decides he's more trouble than he's worth. Authority is an illusion, and the higher a man climbs on this ship, the sharper the blades beneath him. At night, the air thickens with it. Every hammock creaks with unease, every shadow stretches too long. You lie awake, listening for footsteps that hesitate too close, or the scrape of steel sliding from a sheath. Sometimes it is only the rats, bold as any man, sniffing at crumbs, but sometimes it is not. You've seen men vanish, their absence explained with a shrug, slipped overboard, caught in the rigging. You'd like to believe it's true, but the glances traded among the survivors tell you otherwise. And then there are the mutinies, the storms of treachery that rise not from the sea but from within. They begin with murmurs, discontent over shares or punishment, and swell into shouts, blades flashing in the lantern glow. It happens fast, always faster than you think. One moment the quartermaster is barking orders, the next he's bleeding out across the deck, his former comrades carving up his authority before his body cools. You don't get to stand aside in these moments. Neutrality is just another word for victim. You pick a side, quickly, or the sea will pick it for you. Treasure is the poison that seeps into everything. A chest of coins, a barrel of jewels, even just the promise of them is enough to ignite suspicion. You thought gold glittered, but here it corrodes. It eats away at whatever thin bonds exist between you and the men around you, turning allies into enemies overnight. And even when the loot is divided, the resentment never dies. Why did he get more? Why did I get less? Why should I obey the code when the code is bent by the strong? The answer is written in scars and corpses, in the quiet shuffling of men who know they'll never see justice, only survival. It would be easier if the danger came from enemies beyond the horizon. A rival ship, a naval patrol, even a storm at least offers an honest threat. But betrayal? Betrayal comes with a smile, with a song shared by the fire, with a hand clapping your shoulder as if in brotherhood. It comes in the form of men you have eaten with, bled beside, trusted in the black hours of night. That is why it cuts deeper than any blade, so you keep your back to the wall whenever possible. Your knife near at hand, your eyes always watching. You learn to trust no one fully, not even yourself, because the sea warps a man's mind and hunger warps his soul. Out here, friendship is just another mask, worn until the moment gold gleams in the light. And when it does, when the treasure chest cracks open, you understand what you should have known from the start. No one is your friend when treasure is at stake. Night falls heavy on the ship, and though the sea is endless, your thoughts drift back to places that no longer exist for you. The creak of the rigging becomes the sound of wind through a childhood window. The crash of waves recalls the roar of a hearth fire you'll never sit beside again. For a moment, You forget where you are, until the stench of salt and sweat drags you back. That ache in your chest, the one that gnaws when the stars remind you of land, is homesickness, though you quickly learn the word is too gentle for what it feels like. Out here, it is not nostalgia, it is grief. There are no letters passed around the crew, no scraps of parchment tucked in belts carrying the neat handwriting of loved ones. The world of ink and ink-washed dreams is far away. When you sailed from port, whether by choice or by chains, you cut every tie that bound you to the shore. Even if your family still lives, they may as well be ghosts. There's no way to tell them you're alive, no way to know if they are. The land is a myth you once believed in, a place you conjure from scraps of memory when the ship feels like it has become the whole of existence. The others don't speak of home often. When they do, it's half in jest, half in bitterness. They recall taverns, not mothers, ale, not wives. To talk too much of what you've left behind is dangerous. It makes you weak, and weakness is smelled like blood in the water. So the silence becomes its own language. A man stares at the horizon too long, and you know he is thinking of a farm, a village, a city street that once belonged to him. A man drinks too much, and you know he is trying to forget the laughter of children or the warmth of a woman he will never hold again. Dreams take the place of letters. You wake from them startled, the smell of bread still lingering in your mind, the sound of your father's voice calling your name still ringing in your ears. But the deck beneath you is damp, and the man coughing beside you is not family, not friend, just another soul shackled to the sea. Those dreams hollow you out faster than hunger because they remind you of everything you can't have. Soon, you almost wish you could sleep without them, but your mind will not let go. The truth none dare speak aloud is that most will never see home again. A pirate's story rarely ends with retirement or return. It ends with the sea swallowing you in a storm, or an enemy blade carving your future from your flesh, or the gallows noose tightening around your neck. If your body makes it back to land, it is only as a warning nailed to a dockside post, your bones stripped by gulls, as children are told. This is what happens to thieves of the sea. The land you long for has no place for you anymore. And even if by some twist of fate you did stumble back onto familiar soil, would it still be home? Time doesn't stop while you rot at sea. Your village changes, the people move on. Faces you cherished grow older, or vanish. Your accent slips strange on your tongue. Your manners are those of the ship, not the shore. You are not the same person who left, and the land you remember is not the land that exists. The distance is not measured in miles, but in years and blood. So the ship becomes your coffin, and the horizon your prison wall. You make do with what comfort you can scrape together, a song hummed at night, a story whispered in the dark, a scrap of cloth you tell yourself still smells like home. But these are lies, and you know it. Each day that passes is another thread cut, another nail in the box that ensures you will never go back. The sea demands everything, and it never gives back what it takes. And so, night after night, you lie awake, listening to the endless groan of the ship, the endless rush of waves, and you dream hollow dreams of streets and fields that no longer belong to you. Because the truth is sharper than any cutlass. Most pirates never see home again. The sea does not care who you are. It does not bend for gender, nor for class, nor for the soft illusions you carried from land. Out here, the waves grind everything into the same salt-soaked misery. But when stories of pirates slip into the mouths of tavern singers and ballad mongers, the women stand apart, larger than life. They become symbols of wild freedom, of scandal, of a world turned upside down. Names like Anne Bonny and Mary Read travel farther than the ships themselves, whispered in awe as though the ocean had crowned them queens. Yet the reality is harsher, stranger, and far less forgiving. You imagine for a moment what it would mean to wake on a pirate deck not as a man, but as a woman. The hammocks would not be kinder, the food no sweeter, the air no fresher. Every rot, every infestation, every lash of labor would weigh the same, but layered atop it would be something else, a tension thicker than the smoke of the cannons. The eyes of the crew upon you would not just measure your worth as a sailor or a thief, but as prey. Stories like Anne Bonny's survive precisely because they are exceptions. Most women who found themselves on ships did not do so as comrades. They came in chains, captives dragged from burning ports or hijacked vessels, prisoners tossed among desperate men whose loneliness had rotted into something monstrous. Anne Bonny and Mary Read cut their legends in blood, disguising themselves as men or refusing to be hidden at all. They fought with pistols, swung cutlasses, earned their place in the smoke and thunder of battle. They were not spared the filth or the danger. They claimed it, lived it, and in doing so became proof that women could carve terror as sharply as any man. But they were the rarest of rare, like lightning striking twice in the same storm. Their notoriety was fed by the astonishment of the age, the scandal of women breaking free of the cages society had hammered around them. The ballads do not dwell on the lice, the welts, the fear of hanging. They paint them as almost supernatural, fiery-haired devils who laughed while men bled. But for every Bonny or Read, there were dozens, hundreds even, of nameless women whose stories were never sung. Captured sailors' wives, merchants' daughters, serving girls pulled from ports of call, all taken into holds dark as coffins, where their screams were swallowed by the creak of wood and the crash of waves. The myth of pirates as liberators, of the sea as a place where women found equality, shatters under this truth. Freedom was sometimes carved, yes, but more often it was stolen away. Those women did not become legends. They became bones, scattered in foreign sands or beneath the tide. The men whispered myths even among themselves. They claimed a woman on board was bad luck, a curse to the voyage, a beacon for storms. Yet the same mouths that spoke of omens were quick to pull a woman into the dark when no one was watching. Superstition and desire twisted together into a cruel hypocrisy, and the women bore the cost. For the crew, the stories of Bonny and Read were double-edged, proof that women could be comrades in arms, but also excuses to sneer, to mock, to keep them at arm's length, unless lust overcame restraint. Imagine yourself as one of them, caught between myth and reality. The ship offers no privacy, no kindness, no choice. Every moment you would be forced to prove yourself harder, sharper, fiercer, because weakness was not an option. Yet even strength could not save you if the crew decided otherwise. You are not a woman among pirates. You are a woman against pirates, unless fate has marked you out as one of the chosen few who could bend the sea to your will. And so, the stories that survive are not of comfort or belonging. They are of defiance, of fire and fury, because that was the only way to be remembered at all. The ballads sing of Bonny and Red, their pistols smoking, their laughter ringing out as if the sea itself had crowned them eternal. But the silence between those songs is filled with the voices of the countless others whose names were swallowed by the waves. This is the truth of women on pirate ships. Not romance, not freedom, not adventure spun from tavern tales. It was a gamble where survival itself was the prize, and the cost was everything else. You think you know pirates. You've seen them with their swagger, their rakish grins, their clever one-liners tossed as casually as dice on a tavern table. Hollywood dressed them up in leather coats that never mildew, in boots that never rot, with teeth as white as ivory, and hair swept back from the sea breeze like some heroic painting come to life. They dance across decks with swords that gleam, drink rum from golden chalices, and wink at the audience before setting sail into another adventure. That image clings to you because it's comfortable, because it makes the brutality of the past seem almost charming. But step onto a real pirate ship, and you'll learn fast that charm was the first lie. The men who took to piracy were not rebels chasing freedom with poetry in their hearts. They were deserters, escaped convicts, failed farmers, bankrupt sailors, slaves who saw mutiny as their only chance. They were men with nothing to lose and everything to take. Their smiles, when they appeared at all, showed teeth blackened or missing, gums bleeding with disease. Their hands were not graceful with swords, but scarred with rope burns, fingers missing from accidents, nails torn and thick with grime. Their voices reeked of rot and rum, slurred with hunger and fever. They were not the smooth rogues of films. They were men cornered by life, baring their teeth because the alternative was to starve. Romance does not live long in the stench of a pirate deck. You wake to men pissing into buckets, to vomit pooling in corners where no one bothered to swab. Their bodies sweat through their rags, salt clinging to every fold, lice crawling across skin so often scratched raw that scabs weep. They are drunk when they can be, violent when they can't. Arguments spark from hunger, from suspicion, from sheer boredom, and knives settle them faster than words. This is not camaraderie, forged in freedom. It's survival. Every man watching the others and calculating how much longer they might last. When Hollywood shows a pirate duel, blades clash like music, sparks flying in the lantern light. In reality, a boarding fight is over in minutes, maybe seconds. A cutlass hacks into flesh, jagged and messy. A pistol misfires, its ball tearing through stomach instead of chest, leaving a man howling until blood loss ends it. On deck, battles were closer to butcheries, the wood slick with gore, men slipping as they scrambled to kill before being killed. No witty repartee, no clever banter, just grunts and screams, and steel ripping into bone. Even the treasure is a lie. The films would have you believe every chest was packed with glittering gold and flawless jewels, the kind of wealth to transform a man into a king. But most plunder was far less glamorous. Barrels of sugar, sacks of flour, bolts of cloth, crates of tobacco. Sometimes coins, yes, but often copper or silver, divided so thinly that a pirate's share might be gone in a week of drinking. Riches that could be squandered in a single spree ashore, followed by the return to the same misery. The myth of endless wealth is just that, a myth. And then there is the lie of freedom. On screen, pirates laugh at authority, mock kings, sail wherever the horizon calls. But the truth is shackled to fear. Fear of rival crews, fear of storms, fear of disease, fear of the gallows. Every port is a risk. Every sail on the horizon, a possible death sentence. The so-called romantic life of a pirate was lived under constant paranoia. The rope awaited them on land, and the sea was just as eager to claim their corpses. What Hollywood sells you is a dream, a polished fantasy to soften the jagged edges of history. It gives you witty captains instead of brutal cutthroats, loyal crews instead of backstabbing thieves, adventures instead of atrocities. It makes piracy look like rebellion instead of desperation. It feeds you the lie because the truth is harder to swallow, and audiences don't cheer for the stench of gangrene or the sight of a man hanging from the yardarm with seagulls pecking at his face. The reality is this: pirates were not heroes, not lovers, not symbols of freedom. They were men clawing through filth, wielding violence like a tool, and dragging others down with them in their scramble to live another day. Hollywood lied to you, and you wanted to believe it. The day does not announce itself as your last. It begins, as they all do, with the creak of timbers, the slap of waves against the hull, the groan of weary men dragging themselves from slumber. You rise from your damp rags with the taste of salt and rot thick on your tongue, skin itching from lice, lungs choking on the sour air. You do not know that by nightfall, you'll be nothing more than a body, whether tossed to the sea, left on the deck in pieces, or dangling from a rope. Pirates do not get warnings, and they never get farewells. Maybe it comes from disease, and if it does, it is quiet at first. A sore in your mouth that will not heal. A fever that sweats you through your ragged shirt until your body shakes with chills. Dysentery leaves you weak, crumpled in corners you cannot leave, stinking of your own decay. The others step around you, muttering, already waiting for you to die so they can roll you overboard. There is no sympathy, no gentle hand on your brow. Illness spreads like fire, and a man who lingers too long is a threat to the whole ship. You cough once too many times and find your hammock cut loose, body flung into the waves before death has even claimed you. Or perhaps mutiny claims you. One wrong word, one accusation of hoarding, one fight that flares hotter than usual, and the knives come out. The ship becomes a court with no law, judgment decided by the loudest voices and the strongest arms. You are named guilty, perhaps of betrayal, perhaps of nothing at all. The sentence is swift. Sometimes it's the rope, sometimes the blade, sometimes the cruel marooning on a bare spit of sand with no water and no hope. The end is the same. Silence swallowing your cries, waves lapping indifferently at your grave. If not men, then the sea herself decides your fate. Storms rise without warning, the sky turning black, the wind shrieking through the rigging like demons come to drag you under. Sails tear, ropes snap, men are pitched into the churning void. You cling to wood slick with rain, lungs filling with salt water as lightning splits the mast like a spear from the heavens. No prayer saves you then. The ocean does not negotiate. She takes what she wants, and she wants everything. Your body is devoured by waves, your name erased before the storm even passes. And yet, for many, the final day does not come in secret or in chaos, but under the eyes of a crowd. Captured at last, dragged to port in chains, you face a sentence written long before you ever set sail. The gallows waits. You stand with the noose scratching your neck, jeers rising from below, children laughing as their parents point you out as a lesson. Your crimes are read aloud not to honor truth but to entertain, your body a spectacle. The drop is sudden, your neck snapping, or worse, not snapping at all, leaving you to kick and choke as your bowels let go. If they choose the cage, they string you up on the coast, your body swaying for weeks until only bones remain, gulls tearing at your flesh. That is the legacy, not treasure, not glory, but carrion. There is no happy ending, no retirement with gold in your pockets, no cottage by the sea, no return to family waiting with open arms. You never see home again. You never grow old. Your life burns out on the waves or at the end of a rope, and no ballad softens the truth. The world forgets you, save as a warning or a myth, reshaped into something you never were. One way or another, pirates die fast, and so do you. If you are reading this, it means you are safe. Your feet are planted on solid ground that will not roll beneath you. Your lungs breathe air free of mold and bilge water, and your hands are not calloused from hauling ropes until they bleed. You have not been dragged to the gallows, nor wasted away from scurvy, nor pitched into the black waves by a storm. You are not a corpse in a cage swinging above a harbor as a warning to others. You are alive, and that simple truth is more luxury than any pirate ever knew. The myth told you pirates were freedom itself, wind in their hair, treasure in their grasp, hearts unbound by laws and kings. But the reality you've walked through here shows otherwise. Their days were misery strung together with blood and hunger, their nights thick with fear, betrayal, and disease. There were no chests overflowing with gold, no endless grog and laughter under starlight. Those were stories dressed up centuries later to make hard men into heroes. The truth is that most lived short, filthy lives, driven less by choice than desperation. There was little glamour in it, only survival at a cost you could not pay. And yet, humanity endured even in that misery. In the middle of storms and sickness, There were voices raised in rough songs, shanties that beat in time with the ropes pulled and the sails hoisted. There was laughter, sometimes cruel, sometimes genuine, echoing across the decks as dice clattered or stories grew taller by lantern light. There were bonds, however fleeting, between men who shared the same hunger, the same lice, the same nearness to death. For all the brutality, they clung to one another because there was no other choice. Brotherhood formed out of necessity, a fragile shield against the void of the sea. It is easy to scoff at their suffering from the comfort of the present. You have medicine that can heal wounds that once meant certain death. You have fruit in every season, vitamin pills to banish the specter of scurvy forever. You drink fresh water every day without fearing algae or rot. You sleep in beds that stay dry, in clothes that don't cling to your skin with salt and mold. The storms you hear are only thunder outside your window, not walls of water threatening to swallow you whole. You are cushioned by conveniences so ordinary, you forget they are miracles. So perhaps it is worth pausing here at the end, not only to marvel at what those long-dead men endured, but to give quiet thanks for what you have escaped by being born in another age. You will never have to gamble your life on a storm or a mutiny, never cough your lungs raw in a plague-ridden hold, never be forced to drink yourself numb to survive another day of rot and emptiness. You have been spared the lot of the pirate, and in that small mercy lies the true treasure. Not gold coins buried on forgotten islands, but the safety and ease that lets you dream without fear of the sea dragging you down. The pirate life was a nightmare painted as romance, but you get to wake from it and carry on with your day. So tonight, maybe raise a glass of clean water to the fact that you're not vomiting over the rail of a reeking ship, not picking weevils out of your breakfast, not dreading the rope or the storm. Raise it to the men who endured, to the ones who didn't, and most of all to yourself for being alive here, now, in a world where survival isn't a battle against the ocean every single day. Drink deep, you've already won.